We look at ingredients at a restaurant in many different forms, but mostly my menu, I have two menus in the restaurant. One is focused 100% on vegetables, start to finish. It is an 11-course to 12-course meal, solely focused on vegetables. So as a team, as a restaurant, we set out a goal to say, okay, how do we look at these vegetables or these ingredients in a different way, and how do we utilize everything that we possibly can when we obtain that fruit or vegetable or protein or whatever it might be. So the approach is how to minimize waste in what we do every single day. And I think a great quote for me is something that I've always lived by is really give all that you can, take only what you need, and leave as much as you can for behind. So through some of these pictures that I'm going to show you is really the approach that we take when we start to think and talk about menu ideas, and when we start to conceptualize ideas for each season that we start to change the menu, and particularly the corn for us, which is in season now, is starting to come out of season for us in Chicago. We're taking the approach on how do we utilize this vegetable other than corn on the cob or just the kernels itself, but can we use other parts of the vegetable in the cuisine? And I guess the first picture would be the approach, looking at the corn. What can we use? We can use the husk, we can use the stalk, we can use the corn itself, we can use the cob. Can we use the stalk? I don't know, let's try. Is it edible? Let's do some research on, has anybody used stalk before in preparation? So here we have taken the corn off the cob, and this is actually one of the dishes that we're serving now. So we take the corn off the cob and then we juice it. There again, juicing. So then we're left with this byproduct of the kernels that have been juiced. So what can we do with this? Normally we would throw them away, but there's quite a bit of flavor in it actually. So we've taken the approach to, well, what can we do with it? For this one, we're actually taking it and we're drying it on the dehydrator overnight. And then we can grind it into a powder. So now we have this really seasoned corn powder, corn meal, if you will. Can we cook it at this point? Now it's dry. Do we rehydrate it in something, or do we just cover it with water and let it lightly scent the water to its a very nice aroma or whatever it might be? So maybe we could turn it into a salt. You know, we grind this up into a powder, season it with salt, and now it's an element that we season a piece of fish with or something like that. So here we have the husk, the inner husk that sits really next to the kernels, which is very tender. What we found a way to do is poach it very lightly in simple syrup and then dry it again, and then we fry it at a very low temperature. And what we're left with is something that's beautiful, crispy, has a really nice sweetness to it. We of course, it's in a savory preparation, but you can certainly go further with the whole sugar idea and candy it even more and get a really nice texture of that. So we use the corn cobs itself to make a stock. For this preparation, what we do is we take the corn off the cob and then we scrape it, because we wanted to get that starch out of that's really close to the cob, and we scrape that down, and we juice, and that becomes our natural thickener when we go to cook the corn juice itself. So we don't have to add anything to that corn juice, so it's a natural thickener. But then we take the cobs and we make a stock, so we cover them with water, and then we simmer them for about 30 to 40 minutes. We're left with a beautiful, really light corn flavored water. And then what we usually do is reduce that down probably by a third or a half. And we can use that for many, many different preparations. A lot of cooking mediums, we could poach things in it, we can braise things in it, we can add it to thin down soups. A lot of different ideas come from just that. Here we are actually taking the stock. Generally, what we've seen as the season progressed, as the stock gets older and matured, it becomes very woody on the inside. Understandable, as you know, corn grows vertically, and you know, in the elements it needs strength to stand up. So what we found is we start to get younger corn earlier in the season that the shoots down towards the bottom are very tender. So we peel them with a peeler or a vegetable knife, and then the inside is what we're left with is this very tender corn stalk. And then what we do is we could take it in many different preparations. It takes a few hours to cook down to soften it. We can pickle it at this point, or we can cook it under sous vide or under vacuum, if you will. We can braise it very low. We can glaze it. For this, what we do is after we take it from this, we pickle it. Then we'll chop it up very fine, and we'll fold that into our custard base. So it becomes this nice crispy element within the custard, so it's not so rich and creamy. We take the outer leaves of the corn, and we start looking at it in different preparations. Well, if you look to Mexico or Mexican cuisine where they use oa santa and banana leaves to wrap pig in and bury that in the ground and cook for many hours, well, we can take the same approach with the leaves and wrap a piece of meat or fish, or we can lay corn leaves down on a sheet pan and cover them with seafood, mussels or clams, and steam them. And there's a lot of different ideas, but the same idea is to take that approach to where it scents the meat gently. It protects it from cooking. Particularly, this beef is a Japanese beef from Japan, where it burns very easily because of such the high fat content. We're able to cook this very high without burning that, charring it too much. Here we are with the juice where we strain it. It's naturally thick. You can see how the consistency of it already. And then what we do is we cook it really quickly on the stove. It becomes up to a boil, cooks the starch out, and then it becomes this very creamy texture to it. We take that, we blend it, we add a little bit of olive oil to it, and what we'll do is we'll set it because, like I said, the natural cornstarch in it, it sets into a nice custard, like a corn pudding, if you will. It has the same consistency of chocolate or vanilla pudding. We also use the husk we char it, we blacken it, because how many people have grilled corn on 4th of July, and it's a beautiful thing, and that smell evokes an appetite. So we take the same idea and we burn them, we char them, but then we add them to a blender with some olive oil and we make a charred husk oil. There it is in the blender. It's olive oil, a little bit of husk, charred. We also take the silk and we fry it at a very high temperature, 400 degrees, and it becomes a really brittle texture. Season it with some salt. There we are, frying it. So I guess to end the preparation is we start to build this dish, and this is something that we would serve in the restaurant where we have the custard set. We serve it with a little bit of golden trout roe from a company in Michigan that farms trout once a year. There is the candied husk. We have corn shoots that we buy from a beautiful company called Chef's Garden. So these are the young shoots. They're very sweet, really, really sugary. There's the husk oil that's charred. A little bit of scallion. This is frozen kefir, which is a fermented dairy that we use. Some chive blossoms that we also buy from the Chef's Garden. And that is our finished product. So really, it's about the idea of looking at a vegetable and try to use it in its entirety and use only what we need. So thank you very much.